Well, history repeated itself with the 1997 Heisman race. If you do not know what I'm talking about, that is the greatest Heisman race, in my opinion, that we have ever seen. There's a 30 for 30 documentary created about it. By the way, just a fair warning. I wouldn't even call it a negative warning. It's just a very different documentary. Instead of, interviewing Randy Moss, Peyton Manning, everyone across the board 20, 30 years down the line, instead, they sat in a room and said, we're going to give the viewer the experience of what it was like to be in 1997. What I mean by that is just basically they go through the news channel, the broadcast, everything that was recorded and sent out during 97 and walk you through that season. I think it's very interesting, but if you're definitely someone that prefers the more traditional format of a documentary, it may not be your cup of tea, but regardless, find information around this 97 season because it's insane to talk about. Not only was the four people that I'm about to talk about the finalists, you had a bunch of other players having incredible seasons, and you were genuinely splitting hairs on who should be ahead of the other and who should be getting invites to New York City for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. But why am I talking about something that happened 25 plus years ago? Well, I think that we are on the cusp of repeating history in such a interesting fashion in 2024. Week 5 is just completed for the college football season, and I'm going to make my, reaction videos. We just came off of one of the craziest games I've ever seen. You see the videos on my channel. By the way, go check out the other videos. If this is your first time here, we're so close to 1,000 subs. All I'll ever ask of you is give me an opportunity to talk football. There's the self promo. But we just came off of a crazy week 5. And I feel free to disagree with me because I understand it is still so early in the season. Heisman's and national championships are not won in September, but the four favorites, in my opinion, to go to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony in 2024, Ashton Jeanty, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and Jaylen Milroe. And that's the comparison we are going to talk about today. First, let's talk about Randy Moss in 97. I think Randy Moss would even tell you himself he did not think he was going to win this Heisman. In 1997, Randy Moss had 1,600 yards and 25 touchdowns in his Heisman attempt at Marshall. And obviously, the comparison is pretty, clear here. I'm putting Ashton Jeanty and I'm comparing him to Randy Moss. You may say, Tegan, take a step back. That's a running back wide receiver. Randy Moss is arguably the greatest wide receiver we have ever seen. Hear me out. I'm not calling Ashton Jeanty the next Barry Sanders, that kind of guy. What I'm more comparing is the situation. A group of 5 team or a lower level team with an incredible star putting up video game-like numbers. I'm not one to use on-pace stats for players just because you actually have to do it, but what I have right now is an incredible season from Ashton Jeanty. You see the numbers on your screen. These are video game-like. These are road to glory on rookie mode-like. I've never seen a running back have this level of a start. He's on pace to potentially go for 3,000 yards, shattering Barry Sanders' record. It's insane to look at. And it's insane to look at Randy Moss's, 25 touchdowns and 1,600 yards in the 90s. I mean, both are insane stat lines to start. I don't think Ashton Jeanty is going to win the Heisman. And it's heartbreaking because I think he should be in the conversation. But I think if you look at the rest of Boise State's schedule, the most difficult game looks to be Oregon State to finish the year. And even if he goes for 300 yards, he would have to go for like 3K, and people would have to continuously keep talking about him for the entire season for him to even get an opportunity. It sucks that he's on the West Coast. It sucks that he's in a group of 5 team. There's just too many things that are going against him, let alone he's just not a quarterback. But he is putting basically the best step you could imagine forward in order for them to even give him an opportunity to win this award. But I have to credit Ashton Jeanty because he's been incredible this year. I'm not ranking these 1 through 4, but I'm going through these comparisons just to help you guys understand where I'm coming from for this 97 to 2024 comparison. The next comparison is very difficult to explain because I don't think it's a very good comparison. I think 3 out of the 4 are pretty solid comparisons when we're talking about the players of right now, the top 4 versus back then. Obviously, this player could be swapped out and it's more or less accurate, but it is Ryan Leaf to Jaylen Milroe, 2 very different play styles, just objectively. And I think it's more fair to say if I lumped, Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, Jaylen Milroe, Cam Ward, and the modern version of just quarterback positions and the mobility and the play styles are just so different. So I'm never going to compare those 2 play styles because they're just flat out different. But I do think, at the end of the day, we have to talk about the quarterback position in the Heisman Award because it's seen as a quarterback award. Of course, you have these two together. I think, Peyton Manning and Cam Ward is a little bit more similar just because of the fact that Peyton Manning came back. He could have gone to the NFL, made the big, massive return to Tennessee, comes back and is playing in an incredible level. And Cam Ward was this close, to going to the NFL, ends up transferring. Obviously, modern era, like back then, transferring was not as prevalent at all. And so Cam Ward transfers to Miami, and now they're on the cusp of being a national title contender. I understand that they had a rough game against Virginia Tech, and I think it definitely knocks Cam Ward down. But you see the comparisons here of the two quarterbacks. They are going head to head. Some would probably have Jaylen Milroe in front of Cam Ward. Cam Ward was in front of Jaylen Milroe for the good portion of the first 4 weeks. So that's the main comparison. I am very clear that it's pretty weak, not comparing play styles at all because a Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf just don't exist anymore. That's not the style of quarterback that succeeds at this level because of how athletic defenses have become. But I do think the comparisons of the two quarterbacks going head to head, Jaylen Milroe fighting to potentially be a quarterback one in his draft class, same could be said for Cam Ward. And then obviously you also have Shedeur Sanders in there, Carson Beck. So the quarterbacks could definitely be exchanged, especially knowing the Alabama schedule, the Miami schedule, Nico's opportunities, Carson Beck, Dylan Gabriel is someone that even has better odds than Ashton Jeanty. So any quarterbacks get swapped out, but you see where my thought process is with this comparison. But the best one across the board is Charles Woodson and Travis Hunter. I'm fully aware that Charles Woodson did not play the same level of offensive football as Travis Hunter has done in like 4 games. Very clear on that. It was a different game back then. The fact that Charles Woodson was playing that much defensive football and still won the award, even though Tennessee fans will fight tooth and nail that Peyton Manning should win that award, it was impressive that Charles Woodson was even able to contribute on the offensive end. Now we're in 2024, where basically you have no shot as a defensive player unless you are contributing on the offensive side of the ball. Even at the NFL level, you get screwed even when you do just that. Shout out J.J. Watt in 2014. I'm still upset about that. But at the end of the day, this is probably the closest transformation of the cornerback position to / wide receiver position because Travis Hunter's just doing it all, man. He's the best player in the world. If he doesn't get an invite to New York, get rid of the award. It's the truth of it. It's just you cannot do more as a player in a non-primary position of the quarterback. You can't do more. He's basically running an Ironman marathon every single game. He's making plays every single game on both sides of the ball, catching touchdowns, forcing fumbles, getting interceptions. It's the most you can do as a defensive player because I don't know what Travis Hunter wants to do at his heart of potentially being a corner. I assume that's why he went to Deion Sanders and said, I want to learn how to be a corner at the next level. It just turns out he's just that good at wide receiver too. And so I think, yes, Charles Woodson, a primary defensive player, but I think as the game has progressed and what the Heisman Award has demanded from a position, whether it's fair or not, this is what the result is. If you want a player that potentially could actually win this award and play on the defensive side of the ball as much as Travis Hunter does, this is what has to happen. And we are in for a wild race. Take all those comparisons and then add on the fact that all the other guys that I mentioned, Dylan Gabriel, Nico, Quinn Ewers could come back and end up torching the rest of their schedule with Georgia on the line. Oklahoma, they still have to play Texas A&M at the end of the year. Like, there's so many opportunities for other players to come and absolutely wreck this comparison, but it's more to say less than trying to be truthful in a comparison, even though I think there is some great and weird correlations here, that we are in for one of the craziest Heisman races that I can remember in quite some time. And honestly, do you guys think history has a chance to repeat itself and we see Travis Hunter end up winning the award and screwing out a quarterback, as some may feel? I'm looking at you, Knoxville. Or do you think a quarterback just ends up winning it and we get a basic Heisman Award? I would love to hear your thoughts, but thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's video. This is Rush to the Field, your home for all things football, primarily college football. But give me an opportunity to talk football with you. That's all I'll ever ask. Whether it's a like, a comment, subscribe, anything across the board means the world to me, and I will see you guys next time.